Hello again. In this section, we'll talk about the components that go in a typical 3D printer. More or less, all FDM printers work on a similar framework. So no matter how expensive or cheap, big or small your 3D printer would be, you would be able to understand the functionality of your printer using this guide. The printer we are looking at today is called ANET A8. It is one of the cheaper options available and is shipped worldwide. Now, the print quality from the printer is average, but the main reason for using this printer in this demonstration is because it is one of the most DIY kits available in the market. Assembling such a printer can be a great learning experience. So let's get started. Let's discuss the components that we'll be needing for building our 3D printer. In tools, we'll be needing screwdrivers, tile nipper, Allen keys, and an open spanner. We will use M3 and M4 screws of different lengths, nuts, spacers, and M8 nuts and spacers for threaded linear rods. We have a power cord and a power supply with a 12 volt 15 amp power output. The display board we are using today is a 2004 LCD screen, widely used with microcontrollers such as Arduino for DIY projects, and is quite easy and cheap to procure. Hotbeds are used in 3D printers because they dramatically improve the print quality by keeping the extruded plastic warm and thus preventing warping. Warping means that the sides of the print shrinks and thus causing the print to lose its grip from the surface, which is one of the main causes for most failed 3D prints. It's also recommended to use painter's tape or Kapton tape to improve adhesion. We have some yellow painter's tape in our hotbed. Hotbed is mounted on top of a mounting plate. This allows the leveling of hotbed with a simple platform leveling spring screw system. We have 5 motors in 3D printer. X-axis motor helps the x-axis motion of the extruder, which is left or right motion. Y-axis motor moves the hotbed front or backwards. There are 2 Z-axis motors that move the rods up and down to help extruder move in the Z-axis. And finally, extruder has a motor that pushes the filament through the nozzle using a direct drive extrusion system. There are 2 parts to an extruder, a cold end and a hot end. The cold end is the part that physically forces the filament forward and is typically comprised of a gear, bearing, and a stepper motor. It is fed into the hot end where it will first pass through a melt area to liquefy the filament until it is forced out of nozzle. Limit switches or end stops are electrically connected to the end stops port of the motherboard and will provide a signal when end stop switch is pressed. This makes the printer aware of its end positions to impose print size restrictions. The fan and the heatsink attached to the side of the direct drive extruder is essential to keep the thermal isolator cool so that the filament only melts at the end of the extruder. The second fan blows air at the extruded plastic to solidify it quickly. Without this, the print may sag down or even sometimes break. There are 2 kinds of linear rods that we will be using, threaded and smooth rods. Linear bearings allow the extruder and the hotbed to slide over smooth linear rods. Timing belt allows the motor to transmit the movement onto the extruder module or the hotbed. A drive gear is attached to the stepper motor. The belt fits into the notches of the gear, preventing it from slipping and allowing it to rotate with the motor. Motherboard is the brain of a 3D printer. You can relate this to motherboard of a computer that controls various functions of the machine and is a complex combination of hardware and firmware. The board is a combination of RAMS 1.4, which is a shield, Arduino Mega 2560, which is a popular microcontroller, and A4988 drivers. RAMS 1.4 is an open source shield of the RepRap project, which is the short form for Arduino Mega Pololu Shield. This piece of hardware runs in a firmware called Marlin in an Arduino IDE compiling environment. For the mainframe, we have Z-axis supports and the acrylic body laser cut parts that holds up the printer together, and finally we have some wires for wiring hotbed, motors, end stops, extruder and power supply to the motherboard.